Okay, thank you. So welcome to everyone who is here, and welcome to those who are online. I can't see you, but I understand that you're there, and I want you to know that you're a part of this evening, and I hope that you feel a part of this evening. We just had a little impromptu singing that you have to trust that in the room here, the and the microphone is not. So thank you. So first this evening, we have a Mackay. It must be positional. No? There's been gremlins in my computer today, and everything I touch has gremlins. So it's me. It's not you. It's not the microphone. It's me. Um, maybe not have my phone in my pocket. Okay. So we are thrilled that we have both apostles for Field 4, which we are, Field 4, if you didn't know that already, with us for this weekend. And some of you have met Shannon when she was here at Loaves and Fishes reunion at Ziontario, but may not have had opportunity to meet Lach unless you were at conference. Perhaps you took the opportunity to reach out and talk with him. And I don't even see where, oh, there he is. So he is from Independence, Missouri. He is a history buff, and we will probably benefit from that passion. Interesting that his degree in college was economics and Russian studies. Now, there's a reason to get to know him. What prompted him to study Russian? Maybe he'll share that with us. But we're so thrilled that he is here to share with us. And it's called From Story to Mission. And I know he's a storyteller, so Lach, I invite you to come up and share your story. Welcome.
So the trick with the microphone has convinced me to be more thoughtful about putting my phone in airplane mode on the way home. I hope the pilots aren't having the same problem that we're having. So I do want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm kind of uncomfortable with the why Russian studies part now. It was a former life, but I'll tell it anyway. I love humiliating myself. So I grew up in eastern Jackson County, Missouri. You're going to see a picture later of me when I was a very small child. And I went away to the University of Missouri, and I wanted to be, I had no idea. I just didn't know. But boy, this is an embarrassing part. I guess I'll tell it anyway. Was an attractive young person sitting not far away who, when they said, "Who wants to be a physical therapist?" raised their hand. And I said, "I think I can do that." And we ended up with 6 classes together. They had a boyfriend. And I soon realized that math was not my strength. And there's a surprising amount of math in physical therapy. And so I had signed up for things like Russian Civ and lots of economics classes as well. And I liked them and I was doing well. And so I decided I wanted to get a degree in Russian area studies and work for the Central Intelligence Agency. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Except I'm terrible at languages. But it actually has been a pretty helpful education. After I got out of university, I did apply and I spent 6 months in the interview process. But I think it was my language or lack thereof that did me in. But I like to blame my brother who got in some trouble. So I'll blame him. But after I got out of university, I needed to kill some time during that long interview process. And so I signed up to go to Nauvoo, Illinois, and a museum management internship through Graceland. And I thought, I had to learn something about church history before I go. I'd been to Nauvoo many times, but never captured by the story. But I picked up this book, Kingdom on the Mississippi, and I started reading, and I just fell in love with our story. It is an incredible foundation to build a church on. Just fell in love with it and was invited to go to Kirtland the second summer. And I knew that if all went as planned, I would be an intern for the summer. And then at the end of the summer, I would become the site director, which was a little awkward because the volunteer site director stayed. But it worked. And then eventually I ended up responsibility of both Kirtland and the Nauvoo sites. And kind of here I am today. When I shared with my mom my call into the Council of 12, her response mirrored mine. You've got to be kidding. But here I am, and I am privileged to be working with Shannon. And again, Field 4, which is Australia, the Pacific Islands, Canada, the British Isles, Western Europe, and Eurasia. So those Russian skills are going to come in handy if it's ever safe again to go to Russia. And we also have First Nations and all peoples congregations, non-geographic congregations, and as of just a few days ago, a Plano Stone Church non-geographic congregation. So we are traveling a fair amount these days. We have been talking how we can encourage members and leaders across the church to feel comfortable experimenting with what church might be in the future. Traditional congregational life is important, and we're going to continue supporting that. But it also, in some parts of the world, seems clear that we need to be doing something in addition to that, because there are a number of people who don't find Sunday morning relevant. So what can we do that might be meaningful? We don't know yet. We're trying all kinds of things, and we need your help in experimenting. So some of us need to be focused on the traditional Sunday morning thing, and some of us, I'm hoping, will try something new. And so tonight is an exercise to start thinking about what something new might look like. I think you all know really well the enduring principles. They are the who we are statements, the guiding truths or foundational beliefs that orient us towards meaning, purpose, and action. And we have these wonderful graphics courtesy of John. I had this really interesting conversation with Jim Mulholland, who was then a Quaker minister at Spec years ago. And we were talking about whether intentional identity formation is possible. And he was sure that it was. He said, you need three things. You need story, you need song, and you need art. You need visuals. And so I'm here to do the story. John has provided the visuals, and we have this amazing, not new anymore, hymnal. So we have the tools to become these things. And I think it's working. I'm seeing it work across the church. We also then have mission initiatives, the what we do statements. And again, courtesy of John, we have icons to help us remember those and understand those. So enduring principles, who we are, mission initiatives, how we express that. But we've also realized that the language that's not that old is now often uncomfortable for people who have not been raised in a religious background, a Christian background. And that's lots and lots of people these days. And so we are using often language that is sometimes just uncomfortable, but sometimes it's threatening. And so it's going to be important to think about who I'm talking to and what language should I speak that might be meaningful. We have to do cultural translations as we encounter people and learn to speak the language that will be meaningful to them and that they might understand. So we're talking about the same things, but maybe in ways that provide a little more comfort and a little more opportunity for the conversation to continue. So there are times when we might talk about inviting people to Christ, but maybe that's making disciples. And even the disciple language could be a little uncomfortable. At times, maybe it's abolish poverty and suffering. At times, maybe that's confronting oppression. At times, pursuing peace. I like that one. But maybe it's creating change. So you're going to be hearing probably some new language as we explore some of these things. And it could be individuals that are connecting with us, or congregations that are growing, or congregations that are sunsetting. That feels better than dying, right? And here's what I really hope we spend time on tonight. It might be new Christ-inspired missional communities. We're not going to use missional as we talk about these with folks out there, because even the word mission, what does that mean? What does that mean? Depends on who you're talking to. I mean, if they're from a background of the Church of Jesus Christ, that's a 2-year out there trying to convert people. If you have been exposed to Catholicism, that means something else, and maybe not in a positive way. We use it in a different way again. Okay. Before we launch into some stories, lessons from our journey. Listen carefully to your own journey as a people, for it's a sacred journey, and it has taught you many things you must know for the journey yet to come. I am thoroughly convinced that if we would just listen, our story is full of powerful lessons that can change the world. And I believe that because some of these stories changed me. Some of these stories changed me. Stories like those of the church in Jackson County, Missouri, in the States. Some of you were just there, yeah? This probably doesn't look familiar, but this is Independence, Missouri, very early. You didn't see the cows when you were there? You just should have driven another mile or two, because they're not far away. Section 95 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Anybody know what that says? It's not one we talk much about, huh? Section 95 is 1833, August 6th, although it's probably not all August 6th, but August of 1833. It's written in Ohio, but sent to the saints in Missouri, the church members in Missouri. And among other things, it says, if attacked, if assaulted, turn the other cheek. Sound familiar? Not once, not twice, but 3. Even then, you will be blessed if you resist responding to violence with violence. And even then, you can only fight back if the Lord commands it. Yeah, okay. Not pacifism, but not far removed. And we were serious about this. We did not fight back when initially attacked in Jackson County, Missouri, for reasons we'll talk about in a minute. We didn't fight back the second time. I need to go reread. D. Michael Quinn is the one who pointed this out. But when we did eventually fight back, there was yet another occurrence, and then we thought we had permission. It was a shock to the people who were attacking us because they'd come to expect that we would not fight back. How did that end for us when we started fighting back? Not well. It did not work out well. So the cause of peace is called to us from the very beginning. There was probably a time in my life where, yeah, Jesus talked about peace. But there was probably a time in my life that I thought this is really an expression of church leaders who came of age in the 1960s. That's where all this peace talk is coming from. But as I dove into our history, it became really clear to me that that's not what happened. It was there from the beginning. Now, we lost it for quite a while. We eventually succumbed to the frontier culture of violence, but there are many expressions of it in the earliest years of the church. So it's not new. So why the conflict? You see an image of our print shop being destroyed in Jackson County, Missouri. It's a cultural conflict. We are from New England. We had published an article in the church newspaper called Free People of Color, which was describing the intricacies of how freed black men and women could move to Missouri and become part of us. But of course, if you didn't read the article and you see the headline, what does that sound like? A call to free people of color, which did not play well in Jackson County, Missouri in the early 1830s. Most of the citizens there had come from Virginia or Kentucky, and they were fans of enslaving people. We are coming out of New England. We are not fans. We also believed that we should live communally, that living together was a better system, but we were surrounded by folks who are fans of rugged individualism. We liked Native Americans, thought at some level they're God's chosen people. Our neighbors were terrified of them just across the border. We even dressed differently. We had funny accents. I mean, we were just different. So because of the prejudices of others, we ended up being violently expelled from Jackson County. So we know what it feels like, maybe not individually, but maybe individually, to be persecuted because of the prejudices of others. I am not saying we didn't make some mistakes. There's plenty. But we know what it feels like to be persecuted because of the prejudices of others. I think that means we have a moral obligation to be even more thoughtful about our own prejudices. Kirtland, Ohio, place that I was in for about 15 years. You see the Kirtland Temple with the Kirtland Mills burying ground in front of it. As we built that magnificent structure, we were described as living in an assemblage of hovels, shanties, and small houses, few of which were fit for human habitation. And we were described as living on air and water and a little hominy, a little corn porridge. We know what it feels like to be hungry. Like, these were some deeply impoverished people. We know what it feels like to be hungry, not maybe as individuals today, but as a people. They knew, though, that if they worked together, they could accomplish some amazing things. When finished, this building was one of the largest in northeastern Ohio. Most meeting houses in that part of Ohio, if you picked them up and turned them sideways, would fit inside Kirtland Temple. So it is wider than almost all were long in that part of the country at the time. Just an incredible structure. But they knew that when they finished it, they would have a place not just to worship, but to educate their children. They believed they were being taken advantage of because of the lack of familiarity. Because of their lack of education. Sidney Rigdon specifically says, we're going to use the temple to teach our people to read and write so they can take care of themselves. So really significant emphasis on education. They knew they could teach their children to read and write and break the cycle of poverty that so many were trapped in at the time. So the blessings of community being expressed. Far west Missouri. I'm going to jump back to Missouri. There was a significant number of Canadian converts who had gathered to a little town called, it was a village, Haun's Mill, joining with some other church members there. Unfortunately, not too far away. John is the map maker here. You can tell me how far, but a place called Crooked River. Remember how we embraced violence? We inadvertently attacked the Missouri State Militia, thinking that they were mobbers. And they had been. But at the time when we attacked them, they were acting in their capacity as Missouri militiamen. So inadvertently attacked the Missouri State Militia, which for some reason the governor of Missouri took exception to. Issued something called the extermination order. Leave, he didn't mean leave or we'll kill you, although we for a long time thought that's what it meant. He meant leave or we'll forcibly remove you. But there were people killed on both sides of that conflict. Soon, including some of those Canadians. Soon, we had gathered to the church headquarters, far west Missouri, maybe 5,000 of us, this city, with thousands of militiamen surrounding us. We are frantically beating plowshares into swords, preparing to defend ourselves, and realize that we need to surrender, and we do. As part of that, we hope to convince the Missouri government to allow us to stay, but they didn't. And so by the winter of 1838 into 39, we are forced to flee across the frozen north of Missouri, which probably from a Canadian perspective doesn't sound too scary. But Missouri can get pretty cold, and it was. So Lucy Mack Smith, Joseph Smith's mom, gets to the Mississippi River. They can see sanctuary in Quincy, Illinois on the other side, but they've got no way to get across the river. She said they laid down and covered themselves with their blankets as it snowed. They woke up next morning, 6 inches of snow on their blankets. And she said it was only with the utmost difficulty that we could fold the frozen blankets. And there's all kinds of awful stories as they're crossing Missouri to try and escape. It didn't matter if you had been involved in what's sometimes called the Mormon War in Missouri. It didn't matter if you'd done anything wrong. It only mattered what faith are you. So as a people, we were religious and political refugees being driven from the state of Missouri. Fortunately, the people of Quincy, Illinois, a town of maybe 1,600 people, opened their homes to us. About 5,000 of us. 1,600 people took in about 5,000 of us, and fed us and found work for us and allowed us to stay in their homes. Again, some amazing stories of the generosity of the people of Quincy. They have a long history, not just for us, but for the Cherokee and for blacks that were freeing slavery. But we know what it's like to be refugees. Most of us probably not as individuals, but as a people. Again, I hope that means we are more thoughtful about the refugee status in the world today. So those are some of the church history, just a few of the church history stories that have had a pretty significant impact on me. But of course, my family and those I grew up with, the members of my congregation, also had a really significant impact on who I am today. You see my family. Let's see, where am I? Not going to work, but I am in the red shirt. The little boy second from the bottom on your right. You see my dad top left. He is Australian, so I have dual citizenship. I'm Australian and US. My father grew up on a banana plantation in Nambucca Heads or Barraville, Australia, New South Wales. Came in a not uncommon church story to Graceland, met my mom, they got married, they moved back to Australia. The first two of the children are born there, the rest of us born here in the States. My mom, does that look like the 1960s? Yeah. Her family affiliated with the church in upstate New York in 1830. So my parents, like many parents, maybe most, had a really profound impact on me. One of the things that stands out as I think about the things I care about today and some of the reasons why are my father's generosity to those in need. So he was an electrical contractor, and when construction was going well, it felt like we were doing well. And when it was not doing well, we were broke. But when it was going well, he had a habit of handing out quietly, not publicly, $100 bills to people who seemed to be struggling. And that was a lot of money when I was 10 or 11 or 12. And that generosity to folks in need really profoundly impacted me. And again, it wasn't flashy. It was quiet. It was, please don't tell anybody kind of generosity. And from my mom, I learned, and I don't even know how this happened. I think maybe by example, I learned how important it was to treat with respect people who were less fortunate. How, the kid on the bus that people were teasing. If my mom found out that I was not stepping in, I was in trouble. And my dad was the same. Now, my mom, their techniques were different. Growing up in rural Australia, his technique was to bear hug somebody until they passed out. So I didn't learn the pursuit of peace from my father, but I guess from both parents learned the importance of protecting the most vulnerable, critically important for both of them, and as a result, critically important for me. And so I think because of my childhood, it is when I fail to protect the dignity of others that I am tormented. Like I think some of my best sermons are about my failures, and I've got a lot of them. And I had one last week. I'm in an airport. I spend half my life, it feels like, in an airport. And I love helping people in airports. What else are you going to do? And there was somebody in line who didn't speak English, who was trying to board. He didn't speak Russian. He spoke Spanish. He was trying to board. And for people who fly all the time, it's always annoying when somebody's trying to board when they're not supposed to be boarding yet. Well, he wasn't even trying to get on in the wrong order. He was trying to get on the wrong flight. His flight was at that gate, was supposed to have left, but was delayed. And so it wasn't leaving for another couple of hours, but he didn't understand that. And so it's the United agent's responsibility to, but she was busy. She told him 5 times, but he didn't speak English. Of course, he's not going to understand. So here's my opportunity with all my translation apps that we use all the time. And I'm like, here, this flight's going to Cleveland. You're going to Atlanta. See? But then they called me. Like, it's my turn to get on. If you don't get on soon, your bag is not going to have a space in the overhead bin. You know what I did? I left. Yeah. You should think less of me. Like, I tried a few times, 3 or 4 times. No. Yikes. Why didn't I just say, I don't care? I'm going to get on. I mean, there's plenty of time. I was getting on like the third one on the plane. That's how bad it was. And I think back on the times of my life, often in high school, when I could have, and I did. I mean, I was a pretty good kid, but it's the failures that stand out. It's my failures that stand out. So those are the kinds of things that have made me who I am, and have made me passionate about the things I am passionate about. Just a few of them. So we're going to spend some time talking to each other. And I'd like you to talk to people that you don't know well. So we'll split up. You know everybody well. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So let's try talk with somebody who's not a family member. So I was just in the UK at Dunfield House, their reunion. Nobody was not a family member. But let's spend, what time is it? Oh, yikes. Let's spend 10 minutes. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the stories from the church history, and your personal family experiences that have made you who you are, that cause you to care about the things you care about. 10 minutes. going to call you back early. We're going to come back a little early so we have enough time for the next part of the exercise. So I'd like you to share with me. You've talked about what formed you, stories from church history, your personal stories. Do they connect with an enduring principle? Like worth of persons, I am passionate about because of the reasons I've shared. Pursuit of peace, I am passionate about. There's a bunch of them I'm passionate about. That's one of the problems I think that we have sometimes. What are you passionate about? You have, let's pick one. I want each of you to pick one. Is it grace and generosity? Is it sacredness of creation? Is it continuing revelation? Is it worth of all persons? All are called. We often misunderstand that one. All are called to be disciples. Some are called to other offices as well. Doesn't mean all are called to priesthood offices. Responsible choices, pursuit of peace or shalom, unity and diversity, and blessings of community. Because it'll be helpful in a minute. Sometimes I think, yeah, I can't pick one. Sometimes when there's a congregation of 8 people and we're focused on all 9 plus all 5 mission initiatives, that's hard. And I'm guessing, and I don't blame you, but I'm guessing most of you didn't have these 9 memorized. No. We are abundantly blessed with core values, and they're all really important, but there are times, I think, when it might be helpful if we narrow our focus and collectively cover them all. So you got one? You think of the one? Okay. Now, I want you to imagine the marriage of your passion and transformative action. How might you take something you are passionate about? I used compassion. That kind of works, but let's make it passion. How might you turn that into action? In my experience, we are really good at knowing what to believe. We're pretty good at the orthodoxy part. Now, that can be interpreted in different ways. I mean, right thought. In our context, we're sometimes not so good at the orthopraxy part, the right action. How do we translate our good intentions into action? So what does it look like to marry your passion based on the things that have through the years with action. So just some ideas to start you thinking a little bit about it. We know of an example where somebody, a church member, is passionate about children's theater. Passionate about children's theater. And if you don't have grandkids, kids, apparently, and I don't have children, but apparently there's a huge problem with anxiety and loneliness and isolation among our children today. And so this person who is this church member who is passionate about children's theater wants to try creating children's theater as a ministry, inviting not just the church, but the community into that process as a way to provide sanctuary and healing and wholeness for the children of their community. Laser-like focus on that. I was talking to Lou about Dunfield House in the United Kingdom. It's their campground. And Andrew Fellows is a 70 there, and he is a passionate walker, walking in the wilderness. And Dunfield House is in the center of some of the best walks in England. And it's like, and Wales, it's a mile from the Welsh border. It is a stunning place to walk. And so they are planning in, let's see, when is it? May of 26. You're invited, a walking week where we'll stay together and there'll be different kinds of walks, different capabilities. Some like me, like the short ones. The highest golf course in England looks down on Dunfield House. So one of the walks is, yeah. And if you're a little intimidated by the thought of all that walking, at the same time, they're having a retreat going on for those who don't feel up to walking. But it's a way to introduce the sacredness of creation. It's not just walking, a way to introduce the sacredness of creation to those who might participate. And they are not just going to invite the church folk. You are invited, but they are not just going to invite the church folk. Maybe it's faith and finance for young adults and children to encourage responsible choices. The one I have, I'm guilty. The one I talked about, remember how I'm good at talking about my failures? I lived within 30 feet of the Mississippi River for 18 years. And I love kayaking. And every time I would go out, and the best time to do it is at flood stage, the river is full of awful stuff. And I desperately wanted to pull together one of these groups that would focus on sacredness of creation and healing the earth, cleaning the river. And there's a lot of people who care about that. I don't think it would be hard to do. And again, it's not just we're going to get together and pick up rubbish, but how do we weave faith, community, sacredness of creation into that activity? Just a couple of examples. I'm hoping that you are thinking of the things that you're passionate about and how that might be a ministry opportunity. I'm trying to link passion with ministry and action. Often I see us engaged in ministry that maybe we were passionate about at one point, but after a lot of years, sometimes it's exhausting. And it's not it's not healthy or helpful to just keep doing it because nobody else will. Um, I want to marry passion and ministry and action. So let's talk about it. Different groups, and maybe you're not there yet, but what are you passionate about that might be a ministry? And then we're going to keep building on that. 5 minutes. Thank you. How about you? No worries. Okay, let's come back together. So, did some of you start to identify some passions that might be shared? Anybody identify some passions that might be meaningful to others, that might be shared, might be a foundation for some new expression?
Well, we talked about, well, in this case, girls with anxiety and trying to find ways of connecting, creating community amongst children that have similar, challenges.
What else?
I'm going to start a golf league. Golf league. We've got several women in our group that do a lot of crafts and talking to them. And you stay for lunch after 9 holes, and all of a sudden we've started. They've been bringing items to donate or a bag of wool for our prayer shawl ministry. So finding a sport that you might love is a way of connecting.
So, expanding the blessings of community. What else?
I'm good. How are you? The worth of all people?
Did you see that expressed?
Well, in lots of ways. For instance, in the church, we have one of those signs up and we try to be open to everyone. And I think that's what we need to do ourselves. That's what I try to do. I try not to, I was going to say, let people get away with stuff, but I try to, that's it.
That was the same. My passion is outreach. We have a group of us that started off with 3 and we are now up to 6. We're still inviting anybody and everybody, but we're doing crocheting and cards, anything that we can share with the homeless and our elderly, the people that are in our community in senior homes, and they're forgotten and disenfranchised people.
So, crocheting. So, I assume that traditional crafts are a thing here again with young people. So, but for young people, they desperately want to learn these skills. Like, any quilters? Teaching teens. I mean, they care. They want to learn these skills. Sewing is cool again. Not that it ever left. Mending, to, like, I think people cut up their jeans so they can mend them and put patches on them. Yeah. So maybe it's, and it's, I think, important. It's not just, we need to look out. How do we invite our communities into these kinds of activities where they can learn these skills? And we are sharing, communicating with, building relationship through these activities. There was a group in Michigan where somebody was a skilled woodworker. And so he started, like every Saturday, the kids and their parents from the neighborhood would come and make wooden toys. They did amazing things for a number of years. Now it sunsetted, but that's okay. Part of what we're experiencing now is that these things are ephemeral. They're not permanent. They come together, they meet a need, and then they transition. And that's okay. It's kind of uncomfortable, but that's okay. So you should try the crocheting thing. You know, share it with the community, welcome people to come and participate. But it's really important to be looking out and inviting in. So a couple things that as we started to experiment with this in my old field, which was the Northeast US, we would see maybe it's an individual, but maybe it's a congregation. And we had a few congregations that were passionate about the worth of persons. Everything they did centered on the worth of persons. At the deepest level, that's who they are. And that passion is infectious. And they were not just hanging the flag, but in the community, at the pride festivals, showing up, doing the hard work. And people in their community who shared that passion started turning up with them, started joining with them. And part of the reason was, in some cases, they are the only congregation in their town that care about this thing, that believe in the worth of persons in the way that we do, which is differentiation. It makes us different. And it could be the worth of persons, but it could be any of those other enduring principles based on your passions, individually or shared. Maybe your congregation says, this is the thing we are all in on, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it well. And because that makes you different than the other 9 congregations from various denominations in your town, we're trying to compete often with large congregations that do lots of things really well. I don't know that we're really going to compete in some of those areas other than in relationship, unless we pick something and we do it well. If what you're doing is working really well, I'm not here to say don't keep doing it. But if you see opportunities for growth and change, it might be worth considering. So shared passion, it's differentiation. That's my economics background. And then you got to invite. And you got to invite in many ways, and you got to have multiple entry points. So you can't just put the sign out in the front of the church and expect that people will show up. Multiple entry points. Put the sign out. Do something on Instagram. Do something on Facebook. If you're brave, do something on TikTok. Show up at the Pride Festival. Show up and partner with other groups. So one way to envision this is that these groups, based on passion for enduring principles, these groups could be in the orbit of a congregation, could be the congregation, but could be in the orbit of the congregation. So those of you who find meaning in traditional Sunday worship can keep doing your thing, but you can say, I want to support this individual who's trying this new thing. And that support could be financial. It could be watching the children while they're doing that thing. It could be sacramental ministry as these small groups start to come into being. Maybe somebody has a child who's sick, or maybe there's a baby born, or maybe somebody is getting married and increasingly nobody knows a minister. So there's a connection where we can support these things that are being birthed. So maybe these are in the orbit of a congregation. Maybe they're in the orbit of the mission center. Maybe it's attached to the field. Could be any of those things. And then just one last one, and I hope we keep talking about this over the next day and a half. Best practices. So as these things start to come into being, shared leadership, really important. Shared leadership. is built on one person, it's fragile. Common consent in the way you do the business of the church or your group, really important. Financial transparency and accountability. Partnering. We are not experts on everything, but there are experts on everything, and often they want to help. So partnering, really important. That's part of looking out. One of the Nauvoo lessons was that community building that focuses inward and not outward is often threatening to neighbors. It doesn't go well. We need to be turning outward. Open communication is really important with your support network. And that network is going to be different depending on whether you're connecting to a congregation or the mission center or the field. But don't surprise the people who shouldn't be surprised. We are now really good at the transactional part of ministry. We're pretty good at food pantries and prayer shawls and those kinds of things. And that's important work. Hungry people need to be fed. But we need to take the next step. So how do we turn transactional ministry, let me say that differently, how do we add to transactional ministry the transformational part? We are ready for that next step. We need to take that next step. And my last point, Shannon is going to share because she says it so much better.
Nothing for us without us. For me, it means that if let's say I want to go to the Pride Festival and I want to include people from the LGBTQ community, I should probably have someone from that community that I work with when I'm doing that. If I want to learn more about reconciliation with First Nations people, I shouldn't assume that I know best how to do that. I should partner with someone who's actually from that community. So if it's my community, like I would be kind of worried if you tried to do women's ministry stuff on your own, Lach. Sorry. Nothing for me without me, right? So nothing for us without us would be what these communities would often say.
Nothing for us without us. That's good. Okay. I apologize. I am running long. And again, I'm hoping this is just a conversation starter. Let's do some brainstorming and let's eat cake.
Thank you so much, Lach. That was really interesting, and I think we're going to be thinking about that through the weekend, and that's great. Well, Kirsten, while she's getting her computer set up, I believe the cake is at the back. Is it ready? I'm getting a thumbs up. So if you would like to take a, nope, that wasn't a thumbs up.
It was a thumbs up. However, a little bit of instruction will make your life easier. So Kirsten's going to cut. We have a slab cake, our celebratory cake that has been designed by Riley tonight. So he has made it extra special. Then there are cut pieces of cake. There's two different kinds on each side. One's a brownie something and one's a vanilla with chocolate something. The cut cakes that are already out are gluten-free, but for everyone that would like that type of cake. If you would like the plain white regular slab cake, we're going to be cutting it as well, but everybody's welcome, and anybody with the gluten-free, it's all taken care of. My apologies about the dairy-free, gluten-free people. It's getting pretty tricky to find baked goods that taste yummy that we can get to do